the time in the past.
We've
over
tried,
a good bottle
yeah.
of bread down in the oyster catcher.
We've tried indeed.
You tell me that Harry Jordan's there now.
Harry has been there for the last few years and is doing a great job.
That's the oyster catcher in Carlingford.
That's right.
Which was your establishment.
Originally.
You were the man of vision that made it happen. Yeah.
I bought an old derelict building and did something to it.
This is Brian McKevitt, affectionately known in Carlingford as the Major, for a good reason, because Brian is a man of military might and wonderment and gentleness. The whole package is here. And 50 years ago, you started to become one of the President's men, because you're one of the Guard of Honour that was called out to America to be there for the burial of the President in Arlington.
I was, yeah, indeed. Rowan, one of the 26 who went out there to perform at the grave.
How did all of that start? Because as I understand it, when he visited Ireland, you were there performing there. Tell me about the story.
No. I wasn't there performing there, but our senior cadet class performed the Guard of Honour at the Garden of Remembrance in Arbor Hill, which was televised. And then when Kennedy went back to America, he asked for the tape. And of course, the tape concentrated on Kennedy and had none of the Guard of Honour on it. And we, after substantial training, performed the Guard of Honour at Arbor Hill, and that was spliced into Mr. Kennedy's visit, President Kennedy's visit. So he must have been impressed, and I gather he bored everybody showing it to them and showed it to the Joint Chiefs of Staff and said, I like this. To such an extent that when he was assassinated, his wife made a request that Irish cadets would perform the drill at his grave. And of course that wasn't going to be refused.
No. And it was yours exclusively to do that at the grave? Or were you joined by other military?
No, it was ours. We were right up at the foot of the grave. I think the nearest military to us might have been 50, 60, 70 yards away. It was unusual purely in that it was a request by Jackie, and I suspect otherwise it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. But you must have felt, what were your feelings there at the grave on that day as you were standing there and performing?
My memory is very neutral of it. You were there to do a job. We were only 19. We were determined to do a good job. We were very focused on doing a good job. So emotion didn't really, we didn't allow emotion to get into it. We were there to perform a task. We thought we were the best in the world at this. We probably were, but we thought it because we were told it. And I suppose with the naivety or arrogance of youth, we were good.
But that's the arrogance. That's the arrogance that takes you successfully on missions of peace across the world. The arrogance that successfully takes you to battle when necessary as a soldier. You've been peacekeeping across the world as well, your people.
Yeah, I have. Yes, yeah, I have. I've served in Cyprus, and I did a year in Syria and with my family, and a year in Jerusalem, and worked in Sinai and Lebanon, and did the American General Staff course. So yes, I've moved around a bit.
You certainly have, Brian. Yeah. Could Brian McKevitt have been anything other than a soldier?
Yes. Yes, I have. Good soldiers have come from various backgrounds.
Yeah. But you were the first in your family, were you?
I was the oldest in my family. I went into the army. They accepted me, and I went. I knew nothing about it, really, looking back on it now. It was a job in a period when jobs were scarce. It seemed to suit me, I seemed to suit it, and we got on amicably together.
Do you have a sense, as we look at a calamitous world today, do you have a sense, looking back on your peacekeeping duties, that it was all, what you did and what your colleagues did was worthwhile?
I suppose you have to understand always that peacekeeping is going to be a long-term thing, and that although we're providing eyes and ears for the world in rather disastrous situations, we're also very acutely aware that the solution does not lie with the peacekeepers.
Yeah. You're not peacemakers, you're
No,
peacekeepers.
we would hold the line for a certain amount. The people must make peace themselves.
Yeah. It's been the experience here.
Yes.
It's been the experience all over the world. South Africa.
Yes.
People must do it for themselves.
Yes.
It's ultimately going to be the case in Syria. But isn't it an awful tragedy that it takes folk so very, very long to twig and to understand that? And so many lives could be saved if they close the gap more quickly.
I think this is one of the advantages that I personally brought from my life going around all of these people. Sometimes you can get too intimately involved. You can be too close to the situation. You can be overcome by the detail of the situation. Wiser men maybe have to stand back a little bit, see a bigger picture. I think the same is true in Northern Ireland and Ireland as a whole. We're all looking for a win-win situation out of this. We're all looking where we can come out with our own little bit and our own little bit of victory and our own little bit of understanding of the other person.
Yeah, how important, how wonderful that you say that. Our own little bit of understanding of the other person. That's the recipe for heaven.
I'm a bit confused by heaven.
As indeed am I. That's why I can say it to you so easily. It's that ultimate, that prize, that ultimate human prize of each man giving the other respect.
I think respect is, and you mentioned it, I think respecting other people's opinions, very difficult thing, a hugely necessary thing.
That's the way we go forward.
It is.
Any theories on the notion of Oswald, the theory of, who killed the president? Your man.
I have always, first of all, there was an inquiry afterwards. I always thought it was a little bit short. I could understand the requirement in America and in the world to come up with an explanation. Maybe that nobody else was involved. I remain neutral. Very neutral.
You heard it.
Very neutral. Yeah, I don't think the level of rifle usage would have been the usage of an ordinary man with little or no training or little or no qualification. Really? As a military man, I would say to you that the level of expertise required to put a shot or 2 shots or 3 shots or 4 shots into a moving target at that distance was extraordinary.
I hear what you say. I concur, it seems. Now that you say it and the way you say it, it seems self-evident.
Yes.
But that's the case.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I can also understand why they rushed to a solution.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to point big fingers or anything.
And if it were a conspiracy or whatever, not even the power of the Kennedy clan could have done anything about it.
No, although Kennedy was very popular, you must remember Democratic, Republican, there's never more than a percentage, 2-3% between them in a presidential election. Kennedy gave rise to enormous feelings of respect and support, but also enormous feelings of hatred.
He was a threat to some interests.
Somebody always is. He was then, it was political, it was religious, it was the same. America is still the same. There are tensions within that are treated very well by the American people.
It's a tinderbox.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Do you get there often?
I think we take a rather extended holiday there once a year.
How long do you?
Yeah, a couple of months.
And I've encouraged you.
I enjoy the good weather.
I know, and I've encouraged you to the knowledge that you're 70 and not 69.
You're splitting hairs, Rowan.
I was telling him, I said, what age are you now, Brian? He said, I'm 69. I said, well, perhaps you're like me, you're 70. He said, no, I'm 69. I said, well, look, I take my birthday, my moment of creation from my moment of conception, not my moment of birth, because in between conception and birth, you can be nuked by the abortionist, you see.
Yes,
so he readily said, then I'm 70. Well done. Brian, thanks for coming
Thank you very much,
God
Rowan.
bless you. And
God bless you.
It's a
Thank you
joy
very
to know
much.
you. And
Enjoy yourself.
very proud of you being here
Yeah.
today.
Right.
Some music, sir.